give a shout out to everyone who participated in the Walking for Warriors Endurance Challenge in Boyne Island recently, whether they walked 6 hours, 12 hours or 24 hours, certainly put in a huge effort at Dennis Park, raising funds for the young veterans Central Queensland. So well done to everyone who was involved in that event in Boyne Island. Staying in Boyne Island, the BITS Medical Centre celebrated 15 years and I attended that along with Councillor Goodluck and congratulated Gladstone and Nicole and the team there for 15 years providing that fantastic service in Boyne Island. And of course at the same time we presented Dr Diefenbach with 50 years of service to the Gladstone region with just a pen and a token of our appreciation to say thank you Doctor for everything you have done in our region for 50 years as a local GP. Anzac Day, of course, happened on the 25th of April, and thank you, councillors, and Lisa, who attended services right across the Gladstone region, from Rosedale to Yabobo to Gladstone, Boyne Tanam and everywhere in between, and Mount Larkham, of course, as well, and Lisa attended the Turkey Beach service, so thank you, Lisa, and councillors. Obviously, there's more services than there is councillors, so I thank you for those who attended 2 and 3 services so we could get to as many as we possibly could. We were joined in Gladstone by Commodore Heath Robertson from the Royal Australian Navy, and we thank Heath for attending our service in Gladstone. There's going to be a significant naval presence, obviously, in the Gladstone region, no doubt, in the years to come, and it's fitting to note that they've named one of the latest patrol vessels, the Cape Capricorn, after the landmark on Curtis Island. So we expect to see a visit from Cape Capricorn either later this year or early next year. So thank you again, as I said, to Commodore Heath Robertson and also everyone involved in the local RSL sub-branches from Agnes Water right through to Gladstone, as I said, in Mount Larkham and everywhere in between for putting on those Anzac Day services. And still in Boyne Island, it was the Boyne Tanam Hookup on the weekend. What a fantastic event. I was there on Sunday night for the presentation of the 3 major prizes as well. And congratulations to Simon Heikkinen, Gladstone, Boyne Island local actually, who attended Tallulah State High School, who won the $95,000 main prize, and I know him and his wife are very impressed and very excited to have won that. So again, well done to everyone involved in the Boyne Tanam Hookup, a fantastic volunteer committee, 28 years delivering that event in Boyne Tanam, and well done to everyone involved in that. Yesterday we had the Labor Day celebrations at the Gladstone Marina Parklands, started of course with the march here behind the Gladstone Regional Council Council Chambers into the car park up Kundoon Street and down to the Gladstone Marina Parklands. Fantastic day had by all, and congratulations to Phil Golby and the Queensland Council of Unions and everyone involved in the Labor Day celebrations. Recently we attended the CQ Rock function in Parliament House with of course our neighbouring councils around Central Queensland, and I'll take the opportunity to thank Brittany Lauger who presented us with these ties. So this is I think it's a Queensland Parliament tie, so thank you Brittany. I'm wearing that for you today because, yes, we appreciated the support we received from the Queensland Government and the opposition. We had a very good hearing on all of our issues, from roads through to transition, through to beef corridors and defence. So many issues that our local neighbouring Central Queensland councils would like to have raised with the Queensland Government and the opposition, and we got that opportunity. And of course, thank you, as I said, to Brittany for the tie and to Bryson Head as well, who hosted us later that night as well. So thank you, Bryson. A couple of events coming up, councillors, for those. This one's not in the Gladstone region, but right around the Commonwealth. Of course, we have the coronation of King Charles III on Saturday. For those who are interested, I'm sure that'll be on television. And most importantly, we have Mother's Day on the 14th of May. So happy Mother's Day to my mother and to all the mums in Queensland and Gladstone. I've left my pin behind. I attended the candlelight vigil last night with Councillor Churchill for Domestic Violence Month, and I had the pin and it's on a different jacket, so I'll get another one. But well done to the ladies at Women's Health Centre for organising the candlelight vigil held simultaneously at Spinnaker Park Beach and also Tenham Sands Main Beach. And that's the Mayor's statement on current issues. We'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is a confirmation of the general meeting minutes for the 18th of April 2023.
So moved, Mayor, mate.
Thank you, Councillor Churchill. Seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Hanson. Any business arising? No business arising. Move there be true and correct record. Thank you. All in favour? Carried. Thank you, councillors. We now have a deputation from the 1770 Sewer Action Group. I'd like to hand over to Derek Hedgecock and Bill Comiskey for your presentation this morning. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Good morning, everybody.
Before I start, I'd just like to maybe appeal to Mayor Burnett's indulgence and ask if we could possibly extend a little bit beyond the 15 minutes to do the presentation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's a fair bit to squeeze in. And
They usually go longer, that's just a guide.
You've only got us here for a little while and then we disappear and I'm going overseas, so that'd be great. Thanks very much. All right. So we'll just have it up on the screen there. I've had that sitting there. That doesn't need an introduction. It's just what we're on about. See if I can get this thing to work. Nope. Do I click the slide or do I click the... Should that work? Should that work? Oh, yeah.
Maybe just
Oh, this one here? Yep, all right. So here's a map of our area. Apparently you can't use a Peter Pointer thing here, but up on the left is an area of LPS that's out on the headland. This is just to familiarise yourself with what we've got at 1770. And down on the right there's an area of the town that is also LPSS. In the middle, the Orton Court and a few of the houses along the front of Captain Cook Drive. They are on a conventional gravity system. So we've got a mixture of things. Along the foreshore from where the caravan park is, which is at the bottom left of that right-hand red square, and running right along to the tree bar, pretty much past those houses. There's a sewer main that's under pressure that goes along just above the beach. It's really in the littoral zone. It's a high-pressure main. It's the one that failed a couple of years ago, and you'll find out a bit more about that as we go. And you'll see a little arrow down in the bottom there. I'll be talking about a leakage of some sewage that's coming down into the creek out towards the headland a bit. So when I talk about that later on, you'll know what I'm talking about. So that's 1770 in all its glory. All of these slides have a background picture because I want to get across to you this beautiful place for humans and, more importantly, a beautiful place for nature. There's a lot of incredible nature there, and we believe it's under some risk at pollution because of the faulty LPSSS. So the key question is, what are the essential aspects of a sewer system? Of course, it's safety and reliability. It's both of those. They're the key things. That's why we have them. So just a few things that have been said. This was in correspondence by John Woods from King & Co to our Solicitors Court Chambers in Westgarth a few years ago. And the claim is that your clients and their fellow property owners have received benefits bestowed upon few, if any, property owners beyond 1770. I think we'll probably blow that little myth out of the water today. Sorry. So, but we need to keep that in mind. There's some of the claims that we've been dealing with. Another one is you assert that council has declined to engage meaningfully with your clients, which council rejects. That's from John Woods, of course, of the same people. We've been trying to contact you people lots and lots of times with very limited success. So we've got a contents page. What I'd like to say to you right now is that all of this will be left for you as a PowerPoint. Rachel's put it on the whatever you have, so you can get hold of this, and whenever you want to play with it, you can just go find your way through it. You'll come to a page if you want to go back home. It's all set up, you can navigate through it. I'm not going to waste any time with that today because we haven't got that amount of time, but it's all there as a very useful, a very useful tool for you. So there's three things that we're on about today. We want to have an opportunity to give councillors first-hand our story. We've not been able to do that. We've been going 7 years, and unfortunately, for all sorts of reasons, we can only speculate on them, but we haven't been able to get face-to-face with our elected representatives as a body until now, which hasn't been very helpful. So we want to look at some of the implications, three implications that we think we can draw from Justice Wilson's court order. That's the law sort of side of it. And we want to try and resolve this. We want to come to a point where we can work towards a resolution, which is probably, is exactly what Deputy Premier Stephen Miles urged through a letter to the Mayor last year after we'd met with them in August. We had a Bill and I had a deputation to Stephen Miles' office in the 31st floor of 1 William Street in Brisbane. We were there for about an hour or so, and we presented this 40 pages of submission to them. There's a copy of that on your thing for you to have. I've given it to Rachel this morning. It's there for you. And that 40 pages has been condensed out of a file we've got of this saga that's over over a foot high. So what we've been saying for a while, is that you guys, our elected representatives, haven't been fully informed about everything that's going on. We wouldn't be making those claims without some evidence, and it comes from these things. I'm not going to spend too much time going onto them too much, but we do have evidence, a letter from Stephen Miles as Chief of Staff last year to the effect that he did write a letter to you guys, and we believe you haven't all seen it. And there have been, if you look, I haven't got my pointer, but third from the bottom, we're on about notice and advice for community consultations between SAG and you guys, the council officers, and especially our elected representatives. There was an event, when was that, Bill? Down at the community centre in Agnes Waters, 2018, to which
Thursday, the 13th of December.
That's right.
Yep, right, and we were there. Well, I couldn't get there because I was living in Emerald and the weather was too bad. Bill was going to fly me in, that sort of stuff, but we found that there were some serious flaws in that, including the fact that you guys weren't invited, the councillors weren't invited to it. Of the recommendations that were made to council by the consulting engineers, not all of them were presented at that meeting. So that's the sort of stuff that's been a bit obstructive, I think, to proper governance. But I want to just spend a bit of time now focusing on the law stuff. In Justice Wilson's orders, I think it's up towards the top of those orders, she states that, you know, it is reasonable to expect people to look after, to take some care of the sewer system. That's a universal requirement. I've lived in cities where it's obviously reasonable to expect me not to put the dead cat down the sewer or my engine oil, as my mate, who was the chief sewer engineer for Town City Council, told me happens in cities. If I've got this thing in my backyard at 1770, it's in my interest to make sure I look after it. But it's not reasonable to expect someone like me to look after the most technically complex, the things that are way beyond the ken of anybody but a professional. And even some plumbers and electricians scratch their heads because you don't see these things too often. So we say that it is unreasonable for us to be expected to take full care and maintenance of these LPSSs. Right? And we just think that it's very clearly in contradiction of this term reasonable. I think that's why it's in that Act, in that Plumbing and Drainage Act, that they don't expect anything beyond reason. And of course it is plumbing and draining, it's not part of the NBN. That thing in our backyard is part of the sewer system. The second thing is that she says she didn't make a determination on ownership.
She did that deliberately.
And I think she did that deliberately because she doesn't have to. It's already stated in law. In the Water Supply Safety and Reliability Act, it states very clearly, neither the ownership nor the operation of the service provider's infrastructure is affected only because the infrastructure is or becomes part of land. So because it's on our property, doesn't mean to say it's ours or our responsibility. It's very clear. Now, in a court, a judge is not going to make a determination on something that's already law. A judge is there, I think, to make sure the law is clearly understood and followed, but not to change the law or to change its parameters. And there's a bit more detail there. You can get to this when you have a look at it later for yourselves. But there's a bit of homework there for you guys. You might want to look at those sections in the Act, and there's a full copy of everything I extracted from that Act. Save you going through hundreds of pages of stuff. I've taken everything I could find out of the Act that's about to do with sewer, 90% is to do with water, and there's a copy of that I've given to Rachel, so you can have that. Saves you going through the Act. If you want to do that, you can, but it's there for you. But there's a few things there you can do as homework later on. I have to get used to this. The second thing is right down the bottom of the orders, she states very clearly that none of the above affects any of the statutory obligations that the applicant owes, which is you guys, including under the Water Supply Safety and Reliability Act. She quotes that Act specifically because it is the preeminent Act. It's the Act that governs safety and reliability of sewer services. The Plumbing and Drainage Act is more about defining what plumbing and drainage is. Right, so we believe that that act was avoided to some extent in the legal action taken, because it was easy to go the other way and get a determination out of a more vague and a less explicit act, whereas this one is very clear. So that's all there. It talks about what a sewer is, but the real crunch part is this bit down the bottom. A local government must not declare an entity other than the local government to be the service provider for an area, and this is the crunch bit, unless the other entity agrees in writing to the declaration before the declaration is made. Now, way back whenever this all started in 2008, thereabouts, I'm very sure that didn't happen, because I don't know anybody who signed one of them before the declaration is made. Now, I can only assume that when Miriamvale kicked this off, and they did stage one, that those declarations were made, because there are deeds of agreement existing. Three of them, that we're pretty sure, right? But none of that was presented to us. You guys have, council has moved two motions, two resolutions, as I remember, one back in the beginning and one more recently, to the effect that agreements would be designed or whatever, formulated and put to us. That's never happened. And I'd suggest, because you can't, it's too late. That should have been done before the declaration was made. So I can only assume that these direct declarations were made and all squared off with the regulator before they started stage one. Then along came amalgamation, and you did stage two and changed the rules without checking on this or without doing it or whatever. We don't know. So can you verify that there's been compliance with that? I don't see how you can if no one signed anything. But there's a bit of homework there. We might have a look at this collectively later. It'll take you some time to look at it, see what you can find. But a court can't make an order that's contradictory to the law, and a local government can't contradict a law, a court's order, I don't think. I'm no lawyer, but that seems to me to be common sense. So we can forget about the law for a while and look at some of the aspects of safety and reliability and the assurance of that. We reckon that there's been a failure of Gladstone Regional Council to fulfil those statutory obligations as was prescribed in Justice Wilson's orders. We're going to show you why we believe it's not safe and reliable. There's a range of existential risks to humans and the environment. There's been a hell of a lot of failures. And Jan can probably, we've got Jan, sorry, I should have introduced Jan and Barbara and Peter and Adam. They're residents in our area in town. They've come along, a bit of moral support, but they're here. If you want to ask them a question, please do so, because they're here. And I know that Jan can tell you about the failure stuff, because she's our honourable secretary. She's the maintainer of the big pile of stuff we've got. Right, we know that they've been incorrectly installed. We'll show you evidence of that. So they haven't even been put in properly, and that the whole infrastructure is faulty. There's some severe problems with it. It's just a disaster waiting to happen, and some things have already happened. So these are some of the things. The corrosive marine environment in close proximity causes problems. Ours broke down in February last year. The plumber and the electrician were fantastic. They managed to get the stuff from the depot down there, and they were fantastic. But despite their best efforts, it took just one day of 5 weeks for ours to be fixed. 5 weeks. And when I asked him what the problems was, he said, mate, there's a lot of problems. And he rattled these off. And I'll go through these very quickly. So that's the lid of one of the units. That rusty bit is where a stainless steel bolt with a hex head Allen key bolt, stainless steel, goes into a black metal nut. Well, everybody knows that dissimilar metals in a marine environment. So I've checked 3 in my neighbourhood. You can't get the lids off. The only way to get the lids off, I reckon, would be with an angle grinder to cut the plastic out. You cannot move them. Right, so that's just a basic problem. The PLC is the program logic computer, it's a little black box, the thing that runs your washing machine and all your other appliances. Right, when it fails, the thing doesn't work. It's unsafe, it's unreliable. Yep. If you want a new one, you've got to order it from the only importer in rural Victoria. And you've got to order it through the council because you're the licensed provider. I can't just go and buy one at Bunnings. Because each one of these is individually coded. And you guys have got the code. And the licence, yeah, because you've got the code because you've got the licence. The code is there because when there's 20 of them in our street, say, if there's a power blackout, you don't want them all turning on at once. So they're made to go in synchrony. They're part of a system. So it's an LPSS, a sewer system. And you've put the hard, tricky bits on our block and said you own them. Unreasonable. When you guys receives that, the plumber or whoever, electrician it is, actually goes and gets it and he can put it in. And this can take a long time. When mine broke down, middle of the night, I don't sleep in pyjamas, sorry to paint an unattractive picture, but middle of the night, our alarm goes off. Red flashing light, beep, 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 beep. Didn't happen all the time because it was unreliable. Race down, raining. I'm standing there, mate sticks his head out. Mate, what, you got a problem? So I'm not sure whether to keep my hand on the button or hide my private bits, but in the rain, it's not nice. Funny, but not nice. Okay. So here it is, straight from Aquatech's website. The OmniSmart controller is a fully automated pre-created device that accurately controls flows within your reticulation network. By prioritising pump operation, it optimises your pressure sewer network and is fully upgradable to allow remote access. I have a vague recollection of Councillor Churchill moving a motion some years ago that you guys get some money to do this, and he didn't get a seconder. Is that right, Glenn? I think that's what happened. Something like that.
It's on the
Remote
record.
sensing?
It's on the record that it was expired. The motion expired because there was no seconder.
Yeah.
Okay, we don't want to debate
Anyway,
that because
all
that was to do
Yep,
with not having easements on the properties councillors. Thank you.
All right. They're all factors, but anyway. We know that some of them around the town aren't fit for purpose. The Enduraplex, the one on the bottom left, is a single pump unit that goes for residential purposes. The one in the middle, obviously 2 pumps, a bigger purpose, the big brother on the right. Adam over here, who owns the Tree Bar, who's got a pub and a restaurant and all the rest of it, he's running one off the Enduraplex. His whole place runs off that.
Same as the residential.
Same as the residential thing. He really should have at least the one over on the right. And according to the design engineer's recommendations, that's what should have gone in. But for some unaccountable reason, that's what Adam is saddled with. And he can tell you some horror stories if you want to ask him some questions later.
Put that in. Council.
And council put that in, yeah, they're all installed by council. So I won't go into that, but you can look at this detail later on. So the next question, does Gladstone Regional Council have contingency plans for this? If there are, we're not aware of them. If there's a prolonged loss of power due to a cyclone event or a bushfire or something like that, there's no electricity. I know up at the Whitsundays where they've got one in Shute Harbour, when the cyclone, whatever it was, went through a few years ago, they raced around and gave everybody generators and kept it going. Right. When there's multiple systems failures due to an ageing infrastructure, there are pumps. They're all going to go. There's going to be dozens of them going soon. They're already starting to go. Someone next to Barbara can tell you a story. They're on their 3rd pump. Right. What happens when Aquatech doesn't supply these anymore? They're the sole Australian importer, and they say, no, we're not bringing them into the country anymore. Or worse, where they're made in America, they stop making them. There's a lot of things in this day and age that aren't made anymore, aren't there? And that the frequency is increasing. Right, and one of the guys out the front on the headland, he built a house there, a year or 2 ago, Asked around, what do I do about the sewer? He said, oh, you've got to go to the council. Went to the council, they said, yep, you can buy one off us. How much? Oh, about 15 grand, I think it is, to put it in. He said, oh, so if I buy that, it's mine, is it? He said, yeah, it's yours. He said, well, can I go and get another one cheaper for myself? Yeah, you can do what you like. So he did. He went and bought 2 cheaper units, so he's got a spare. Are they compatible with the system? He tried to find out, couldn't get any information, so he just put something in. People are going to start doing that. You won't know, we won't know.
And that's what happened at Woodgate.
Yep, and it happened at Woodgate, down if you ask about the Woodgate scenario down the Bundaberg side. It becomes an absolute disaster. There are people that have already said to me, off the record, I'm not going to say any more, but they've said to me, when mine failed, I'm not going to pay 10 grand or what to get another one, I'll put something else in myself, because that's what you can do now. You won't know. Right, some of these things have been incorrectly installed. This was taken directly from your sewer engineer, Hemorrhage Fernando, is that his name, I think? Fernando, something like that, yep. He provided this with some of the information that went in the application to the Supreme Court last year, so I picked up this hand little diagram. And it's got an emergency tap box. So in other words, in that box there with the red circle is a little valve, ball valve, turn it off, and it shuts off anything coming back from the service main, anything like that. But up closer to the main somewhere, there's a service box that contains a non-return valve. 2 critical components for the safety and reliability of the system. So there's a question about that, I'll ask in a second. One of our neighbours, his tank's been put in, so the top of the tank is above the level of his plumbing in his house. So when his pump failed, which it's done a couple of times, and the tank fills up, all that effluent goes back into his laundry plumbing. Back into his laundry tubs, his washing machine, that sort of stuff, which is not very nice. So that was very badly put in. Right, so that's a little bit about that. Right, where's the emergency shut-off valve? You'd think that it might be somewhere there. You'd think, yeah, fair enough, have it nearby, it's sticking out like proverbials and you can go and turn it off if you know there's something happening. But no, they're in there. They're in the tank. That's Peter's. That blue thing is the tap. And Peter's was playing up at the beginning of this year and I got that photo when he had the lid off. Mine, can you see the top of the you can just see the top of the pump in the effluent down there. Mine is sitting on the top of the tank. So I'd have to put the big long gloves on, make sure my wife's got a good hold of my ankles, and make sure I get it turned off because it's starting to flood back in from the main.
So yours is on the top of the pump?
Yes, my pump, mine is down, yeah, you can't point to it, but down where that big pipe goes in, connects to the pump, my tap's down in there, down lower in the tank.
Don't want to interrupt there, Derek, but are they all like that with the shut-off valve inside the tank?
Every one I've seen, they're all inside the tank.
Yeah, and that's if you can get the lid off, a lot of them.
Well, that's,
Yeah, well, there's 3, as I said before, you can't get the lid off.
that's a clear design.
I leaned on it's a 6 1/4 mil Allen key, which is a strange sort of size, and I carry it on a key ring, and I take mine off regularly just to make sure I know I can get at it. But see, a lot of people don't live there. A lot of people, some people live overseas and own properties there. A lot of people don't know these things. I'm a little bit handy. It is a major problem. But that
Different steel set, you don't know, you've got 2 different steels, you've got a stainless steel.
into a black metal bolt. Yeah, the black metal bolt is embedded in the plastic in the tank, and the stainless steel bolt goes through. Yeah,
Okay.
and even with stainless steel to stainless steel, they can bind up, as you know. You can put, yeah, they're a major problem. And
you see the bolt hole on the top of the tank there?
yeah, well, there it is. Yeah.
That's it.
Yep, that's the bolt hole. That's black metal embedded in the plastic, and the lid goes over. And there's a little gap between the lid and you can see where it's been overflowing. I was calling Peter's front lawn Flushing Meadows. It was unusually green.
And the smell.
And yeah, it stinks. When mine overflowed, my wife said, there's something smelling. Well, you can smell them all the time. And I said, oh, it's not ours. Our alarm hasn't gone off. I was down in the backyard about 3 days later doing some weeding. I thought, ooh, it is ours. And it had been overflowing for a while, and there are people living downhill from us. You know? And the alarm definitely did not go off. The lights didn't sound. So And my wife had the washing machine on at the moment, so I was pumping out volumes. And so that brings it to the next point. What happens if the emergency shut-off valve, and it'd be up the top, up in that little blue box up near the road. The non-return valve, the off-site service main and then the off-site non-return valve, and they're out on public land where they disconnect the main from the system into the yard. That's pretty typical of any house on the hill that's downhill from the road, but there are, of course, houses uphill from the road. Sewer engineer of mine said if that non-return valves, there'd probably still be enough pressure to push it up into the houses up the hill, but it would certainly come down into my place. So, you know, does council staff, do you know where they all are? Have you got a record of where they've all been installed? Without a guide, you wouldn't find mine. It's up in a very accessible place up, because my house is on a very steep block with rocks and rubbish everywhere, you know, grow plants and things. So what can happen to a property owner's home? Well, it would go down off the main, down into the tank, fill the tank up and start backing up into my house. That's quite possible. So I don't get, you know, I live in Emerald for all sorts of reasons. I come down quite a few times a year, but I could be away for 2 months, come back and be wading around the bottom floor of my house in my neighbour's stuff. Could easily happen. Right, and how is there an inspection? You know, I know that if you've got non-return valves on your taps to your water supply, they've got to be, especially if you've got a commercial thing, you've got to look after them and inspect them. Right, let's keep going. We've said it's a bit of a haphazard mix. Let's come back to this. This part is unsafe and unreliable. These people flush and forget. So how can you say that we've got something, a benefit better than other people in our area? Don't think you can maintain that argument. So it goes back to that base assertion.
And we pay the full sewer rate, same as Agnes Water, $5.94 a year.
Yeah. And if you're getting the impression that I'm the talking head here and Bill's just a bloke with his hand in the glove, it's not true. We've done this together. I'm just a guy who knows a bit about PowerPoint, really, unfortunately. So that's a beautiful, but quite a rare flower that grows in the headland. Most people wouldn't know they exist. It's a type of native iris, really. Beautiful little plant. That's a culvert that comes out under the road that goes to the headland and comes down into the butterfly track. You're probably all familiar with the butterfly track. They've just upgraded that, and the little footbridge in the gully, there's 2 little creeks that come down, 2 little gullies that come into there. The one on the left is crystal clear and nice. The one on the right is tainted by raw sewage, polluted. We don't know where it's coming from, but there's a main, something up there. Maybe there's LPSS, I don't know. But and if you walk along the beach below that, where those cotton trees are, if you're familiar with that, there's a bit of beach there on low tide. There's the green algae stuff and the smell. Barbara's walked along there and we've smelled it, haven't we? Didn't realise, didn't twig for a while, but it's only just fairly recently that a bird watching mate of mine crawls around in there taking photos of birds, and he contacted me a while ago and said, "Did you know that?" Right, so that's just a bit about that. Right, prior to amalgamation, when things were really bad and things were supposed to get better because of the economies of scale, that's what they did at the caravan park. They dug a hole with a backhoe, and all the effluent from the caravan park went into that hole. They put a fence around it. If you look really carefully through that K-wire fence, you can see a caravan in there backed up to it. And it used to overflow. That's effluent juice coming out of that. That was there for a while. And has it improved? Well, they replaced it with a pressure main that has broken, and that's how the high pressure sewer main is secured above ground along the foreshore of Round Hill Creek.
During the holiday periods, we estimate that pipe there under high pressure carries around 200,000 litres of raw sewer a day. And that's the one that broke. For 2 days, our understanding is that flowed straight into the creek.
It took a few days to get the bits to fix it and replace it, because it was a PVC pipe, and it was buried along the top of the beach. I've got photos of when they did it. They went along with a dozer or whatever, pushed it all down, burnt it, and furrowed along, put a 4-inch PVC pipe in. Well, the waves got hold of that and broke it. So you guys have rerouted around it and connected back up to it at both ends.
And there was supposed to be some designs and some funding, and for that, when we made our complaint to the Department of Environment and Science, they said the outcome of that was that you people had a program of works designed for 21-22, and the works to be completed in 22-23. We haven't seen any of that. So that pipe's still there, representing a high danger for that whole creek system.
Until recently, thankfully, they cleaned it up, but there was a metre of dead palm leaves and all sorts of stuff over that. Someone had just go along the road and throw a dumper in. Well, that sort of fire would melt that plastic, wouldn't it? I think, especially with it under pressure, and would have been a thing, I think. So that's how, if you go a metre from that, a metre or so from that power pole up into the bush, that's where the power main is. And on big tides, that's where the water is. So that's that's looking out from there out to the estuary. So that's what's at risk. And the kids' favourite swimming beach is just up the road from that. That's the walkway. That is the water pipe, and the sewer pipe and the power line went along under there, but the sewer pipe's been relocated up, and that was eroded out, and now it's sitting on acroporox. And that's what it looks like. There's the high pressure sewer line going along, and they saved themselves a star picket by tying it to a handy stump there at one place. So that's GRC Handbook High Tech Sewer Line Fixing 101. Right, so we're getting close to the end now. There's two ways forward, I think. We can have what we've got now and keep putting up with that, or Gladstone Regional Council can accept its mandated obligations, statutory obligations, and take up the maintenance of this, and do as Deputy Premier Stephen Mild urged last year, work with us, and as we've always been willing to do. This is not a me against you or you against us thing for me, certainly. It's just, this needs to be fixed for the sake of cessation of human misery and that environment. It's a special place, isn't it? It really is a special place. I've been going there since 1978, and you can see that I've got an appreciation for nature there. Right, so we've been trying to get here for 7 years. This is just in here. That's our pile of... What am I doing? Is it just me? No. That's our file of stuff that we've collected. We've got a lot of information. We're fairly sure you wouldn't have it, because some of that information is evidence of some people in this organisation being very contradictory to those principles of a local government. And I don't think those sorts of behaviours, in my experience as working in bureaucracies for many years, not many of the miscreants leave a paper trail. And a lot of those people are gone. So that's why we're here. We know that we've got information that you guys haven't got, and certainly as our elected representatives you have never been given. We would be reasonably safe in assuming that you've been acting on a lot of the advice from King & Co, but our belief is that that's been now put aside because Justice Wilson has pointed very clearly to your statutory obligations under the Water Supply Safety and Reliability Act. So I think that negates that. That's my view. I'm not a lawyer, but to me common sense would indicate that, you know, it's time to stump up and sort it. Right, we've got some examples here for you to look at. There's some newspaper clippings that make false claims about us. There's things where engineer reports have been cherry-picked. Bill's got some stuff here we can give you, which I'm sure you've got, which shows that some parts were taken notice of and some parts weren't. The cost estimates for easements. Easements was put up as a major impediment in the Water Supply Safety and Reliability Act. It says you can have access, just like the electricity guy does. Matter of fact, you can knock down fences if you have to. Right? And it's pretty important that a sewer system be done properly. So if there's a fence in the road, knock it down, do it. So there's that stuff there, that's all there for you to look at. But so, you know, we're not here to put the finger at anybody at this stage, not at all. We're very thankful to be here to have this say, to tell you things that you definitely don't know about and you haven't been able to make a proper decision therefore. So we're leaving this PowerPoint with you. We're leaving this with you. Rachel, Tanya, those sort of people have got Bill and my phone numbers. You can ring us anytime. It was very refreshing that Tanya, in a conversation to me the other day, said you are welcome to talk to your elected your councillors anytime. That hasn't always been the case. We've got an email that was sent to Cause Chambers and Westgarth by Bernadette Legrand, instructing them to tell us not to talk to you guys. We had to put everything through her. I don't think that's very appropriate, but that's my view, but you'll have your own judgment on that. But as it was very refreshing for Tanya to say, you could. So we're here, you know where we are, you've got our phone numbers. If you want access to that pile of stuff, right, we'll give you anything you want to take a copy of. Yep.
And this is a summary of all the low pressure systems that are in existence across where we've been able to determine throughout the country. There's about 15 of them here, and pretty much all of them are operated and maintained by the council because of the complexity of the systems. There are a couple of others. Whitsunday, I think Derek mentioned, was most probably a private development on the basis that they could put this in, but people had to manage it themselves. So in all other situations, the council own them and maintain them.
At the end here, there's some things that are just a couple of bits of evidence that you can look at your leisure, and you can use those links to go to them and come back to this. But the print stuff there is part of a list that was given to Matt November last year as a list of items that we were very sure people like Matt, you guys didn't know anything about.
I presented that to councillors
Yeah.
shortly after our meeting with
Yeah.
Mark in my office,
Yeah.
so they're well aware of our
Yep,
conversation.
That's good, yep, that's great. So there's other stuff like some environmental reports. At one stage it was alleged we didn't provide anybody information. Early in the piece, we did provide a lot of information. Jan can tell you why that sort of dried up. You'd probably be able to make your own conclusions why it would dried up. If no one's talking to you, stop talking to them, don't you? There's this sort of, that's the new build thing I talked about. That's an email I got about that. I went and spoke to the guy directly. I'm sure that if you want to know who he was, I would say it's okay for you guys to go and talk to him. And he's a very forthright sort of a guy. He would tell you he's a builder in retirement, basically, he's built his own house there. He's got a few clues. There's one of the deeds of agreement, and that's what it said. All relevant works are in the property of council, notwithstanding any actual apparent affixation to the land, and the council will be solely responsible for the operation and maintenance of all relevant works, save for the cost of electricity, which shall be paid for by the owner. And that was the agreement that those few people signed with Miriam Vale, and that's what was going to happen to us on the basis that Miriam Vale was going to look after them. Right, conclusion stuff, which I've already sort of covered. And just for a little bit of fun, that's not fun, but that's what we want. I think we've made it clear. We want you guys to take over running them with immediate effect. We want you to implement some way that we can let you know if there's a problem, like a 24-hour hotline, or we do know that there is funding available, and that link is, at the bottom of one of those slides is a link to a government department where you can get funding, state government funding, for upgrading of sewer and water supply. It's sort of available nowish. There's money there. And you might be able to use that sort of money to put remote monitoring technologies in. So if you live in Melbourne where these things happen, Mr. Smith gets a knock on the door at 6 o'clock in the morning, a couple of guys there in high vis, we're here to fix your toilet. I didn't know it was broken, yeah, but the sensor went off, so we're here to fix it. Right, and this is just a little bit of fun. I don't want to be serious all my life. Nice in bum, but the water kind of reminds me of the old nappy pail. We've got to remember there's lots of other things than besides us humans in this game. Anyway, you can look at those at your leisure, the butterfly track. So thanks very much.
No worries. Thanks, Derek. Thanks, Bill.
Welcome to ask
Yeah.
questions, and there's people there that would take questions if that's possible, mate.
Yeah. Councillors, questions? Yeah.
Yep, I think it was pretty comprehensive.
It was a pretty good summary, thank you.
Yeah. Thank
Councillor
you.
Churchill.
I've got some questions I'd like to ask, but my other colleagues would like to inform me. I thought I'm quite happy to wait.
You put your hand up first, you go first.
Yeah, thanks for that, Mayor Matt, and thank you, Mr Hedgecock, Mr Comiskey. Thank you for the time and effort, and I suppose also the fact that you've travelled distance to be here with others as well. There's a lot of information we've had to read, and I actually would like to make a comment. And I know I stand alone a little bit based on the debate that occurred some time ago, but that's the healthy part of democracy. And I've made no issue with that, and I've never challenged that as such, but I've continued to express my opinion. But that's in the past, so I'd like to think that I could ask you a few questions appropriately, because there's a lot of information in amongst that. Huge amount of information, and I thank the General Manager, Mark Francis, for again going back and getting all the information and research on this. But would you allow me some time, Mayor Matt?
Absolutely. As Bill and Derek know, we have asked our officers to revisit this whole process already, so over to you.
And you perhaps may wish to make comment if I something that might jump out at you as well, Mayor Matt. I've made my position quite clear from the beginning, and that's done. That's a decision that was made by Council. But again, this is another sad legacy from the forced amalgamations, in my opinion. These are in my opinion. But there are many questions to be asked, and there's many answers to be given. And I've taken the time over the past 3 or 4 days when we knew this deputation was coming in amongst trying to catch a fish at the Boyne-Tanham hookup to make sure that I could document some aspects. But it appears to be, from your presentation and the information that you provided in advance, thank Rachel and Tanya, is a legal interpretation versus a moral obligation to our residents and ratepayers. And I'm not a legal expert, others around the table may very well be. But the installation, the service delivery and the operating model, in my opinion, was insufficient, and it was flawed in process. You've made reference to that. But again, hopefully the Council will get the opportunity of right of reply by our experts. That's what is deserved in a common law process. My opinion has not changed. So I'm not going to go over the past, but in fact, I've now become more adamant, having seen firsthand, I've been there, touch it, feel it, smell it, the raw sewage issues of the residents and the local businesses prior to Council's original decision and many times since, with Council's policy now on the Coastal Adaptation and Resilience Plan, the CARP. And I make reference to that because of the highlighted issues that you've got in your presentation, and this Council's proactive commitment in that Coastal Adaptation and Resilience Plan. The project was identified as an action in the Our Coast, Our Future. Are you aware of that? Are you aware of that program?
Yes, because we...
No, that's all I needed to know,
sorry,
just
yep.
as long as you're aware.
Yep.
And that's a strategy, and that was formed as part of QCOAST 2100, a Queensland Government and Local Government Association of Queensland program. And it's a great initiative. And as we all know here today, that the 1770 foreshore and the surrounding area is a unique shoreline and a geography that is an environmentally sensitive, pristine, and may I go so far as to say it's an area of international heritage and historic aspects for many different reasons. It faces pressure, and this is in our plan, from coastal hazards such as erosion, inundation, and the pressures that will be increased into the future. And you've highlighted some here today. But this CARP is being developed to provide council with a pathway to plan for and adapt to those pressures from assets along the 1770 headland and the shoreline. Council has commissioned the Coastal Hazard Resilience Adaptation Plan project to identify ways of better protecting the 1770 precinct, the foreshore, from those growing pressures, so that current and future residents and community members and visitors, because that destination is a tourism mecca. It's a destination, we all know that, for tourism for our region, so that they can continue to enjoy the foreshore and the way of life that this unique area offers. I would like to go to a couple of questions, please, if you don't mind, and hopefully we can get short answers, which is unusual for me because I tend to be a bit long-winded. But today, with the amount of information that I've had to read through, as my colleagues have had to do the same, again to refresh and go back over and then more information, what is confidential, what is legal, what is hearsay, what's a rumour, what's fact, trying to determine and understand that. But what I do know is we must do everything and anything to protect this environmentally and sensitive, pristine heritage designated area. We must do something. And as I indicated, that doing nothing was not an option. Now, I acknowledge that you made reference to me in your PowerPoint, which was provided to us, I think, last Thursday or Friday, and you made reference to me in relation to a motion. Well, thanks, but I wasn't quite sure whether you were being critical of me because I was unsuccessful or complimentary because I tried something. And I know other colleagues tried as well in different ways to get some outcome to go forward in some degree in good governance from the information that was provided. But my opinion at that time was doing nothing was not an option. And this designated local government sewerage service area, as you referred to, the LPSS as such, and by developing, so my intent at that time, and it's on public record, my intent at that time was to determine some type of access, some type of easement, some type of process that we could have technology work for us in some ways for an emergency response procedure to monitor and respond to any environmental and public health devastations when the backyard sewerage wells were reaching capacity or when they overflowed, which they're doing. We've seen it. Some of us have seen it. And that's in the GHD report. That's not my opinion. That was in the GHD report. So again, back to the issue is doing the right thing, or as opposed to what is legal, what is legitimate. And my questions, please, if you wouldn't mind. On Thursday, the 13th of September 2018, which I've raised a number of times with my colleagues, there was a 1770, and you've made reference to it, there was a 1770 low-pressure sewage scheme property owner consultation meeting, invite only, at Agnes Water Community Centre. Of the 75 property owners, just over 20 attended. Were either or both of you there? I didn't get an invite, and my colleagues didn't get an invite.
I was there.
You were there?
Yeah, Bill was there, I was out in Emerald. Bill was going to come and fly, he's got a plane, he's going to come and pick me up, but the weather intervened, so I wasn't there. Yeah.
There were 75 property owners that are relevant to this precinct, this designated service area. How many are part of your action group?
We've got approximately 70 people sign, it's over 60. Yeah, and they come and go because people leave or they sell their properties. But yeah, we could confidently say we've got 60 or thereabouts. At one stage it's a bit more. Some people have dropped off because the perception was we're just batting our heads against a brick wall, which is probably a fair enough assumption to make. Some people don't live in Australia. You know, there are property owners who we couldn't contact I understand that when you wanted to invite us as respondents to the Supreme Court action, my understanding was that you would have had some difficulty getting onto every property owner. There would have been some that you probably wouldn't have been able to get onto. We haven't, you know, we've got a little network of community gossip type stuff, and we haven't been able to track some people down.
From what I understand, over 70%
Yes.
don't want this scheme.
Absolutely.
Is that the case?
Yep, and the don't wantedness has increased as they failed more.
Have you two gentlemen signed agreements?
No. I signed an in-principle agreement.
But my understanding that there's 2 to 5 of the 75 have signed agreements. But King and Company's legal advice, and I've read it 3 times over the weekend, did clearly clarify that if it's inferred or verbal, then you have an agreement.
I'll tell you what happened with me. I'd spent $250,000 doing my house up. I had a plumbing approval done by the council, and the old toilet system had to be totally remodified, and it was all designed for the outfall to be down the bottom corner of my yard, because at that stage the plan was for gravity. So when the rules changed, they came to put in my new system. They wanted to put it where it was existing. I said, you can't put it there. The outfall's got to be right down the back. They said, why? And I said, because that's been approved by the council on the basis it was gravity. So all my system is set up for that. You've changed the rules. You're going to have to comply with that, otherwise my stuff won't work. I've been said, okay, we can do that. But I had to sign, before they would do that, I had to sign an in-principle agreement. Now, because I refused to sign that, if I'd refused to sign that, I couldn't have got a licensed plumber to do the work, for a start, and it would have had an unusable house. So I signed it, and I made it clear to the guys I should have put it in writing. But I should have, you know, that I did it under duress.
Anyway.
And I think that story would give you the truth of the matter.
It's what's happened in the past. According to reports, in 2005-2006, the Miriam Shire Council had major concerns about coliform, environmental contamination of the groundwater leaking from septic tanks into the environmentally sensitive pristine area of 1770. The GHD report indicated the low-pressure sewage screen was installed to upgrade the system for the forecast huge population growth in that designated area. So give me some confidence today that that's occurred. The growth has occurred, and or B, that we've stopped the contamination.
Not when they overflow into people's, you know, Peter's place overflowed quite often there earlier this year. His tank is, how far, Peter, 20 metres from that gully maybe? Probably less? Less than 20 metres from the gully that goes straight down to the creek. So his tank might be 70 metres from the tide, high tide at the most, straight down the gully, so overflowing, that's where it's going. Can't stop it. Yeah, so no, it hasn't stopped that.
I'll
from
wrap up
happening.
now. You control that.
Yeah,
You
thank you, Councillor Churchill.
In the report of 2005,
Yeah.
it talked about the LPSS or the sewage options for the council were about to, meant to prevent those leaks, but it appears now that there seems to be many more leaks occurring due to the failures in the system design.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Failing multiple ways, not just pumps failing, but
I'd be very confident,
technologies can occur.
very confident, Councillor Churchill, in saying that that is being exacerbated. That previous system has been exacerbated by this LPS. There's no way of proving it because you don't know what goes through the groundwater. But the obvious thing is if it's on the surface, it'll wash down into the creek a lot quicker and less filtered than when it goes through a lot of sand.
You provided a lot of information here today, and there are still matters that I'm still clouded in my mind in relation to the installation, the service, the response to any emergency that might exist, and what is the right thing to do for the residents and the ratepayers, and who's going to pay? Where do you get the dollars from? Perhaps the ratepayers we might have been able to come to some consensus on that. But Adam's a commercial property owner, and you've highlighted that particular point, the difference between residential and commercial, but he's not the only commercial property
No, he's
in
not.
that area as well. I might perhaps leave it at this because there's been a lot of experiences, and I've got no doubts that the delegate, the deputation with you today have experienced real-life examples, but I'm not going to get down into the legal and the moral aspects because we now need to have some experts go and analyse your information, and perhaps Mayor Matt has an opinion in which way to go from that as well, because I'm supportive of the resolution that we accept the deputation, but doing nothing hereafter based on the information is not what I want to do. I want to see something done, at least so that it aligns with our climate action response plan, and also the request from the Deputy Premier as well. But again, I'll leave it at that. My opinion still remains the same. I haven't moved. I've become more adamant. But thank you.
Thank you, Councillor
Thanks, Mayor Matt.
Churchill. Further questions, councillors? No? Oh, sorry, Councillor Goodluck.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Thank you. You mentioned the other 15 low-pressure sewage systems that you can find around. To your knowledge, do they being maintained? Excuse me, being maintained and operated by the councils? Is there a special charge agreement within those councils?
Not that I know of. I think on the majority, no, can't, because it's the service they provide. I'm not sure how much more expensive they would be into the overall costs of a gravity system is quite expensive because there's massive pumps and huge volumes. How this relatively low volume, but probably more failure prone, those factors would correlate, I'm not sure. That would take an expert, but so yeah, we're paying the same sewer levy as the people at Agnes who flush and forget, right? So that's not equitable considering that we have the impost of that thing and the breakdowns and the inconvenience and the stench and there's a moral and there's a legal and there's two sides to this, but the answer to your question is I do know for sure that in some of those places, most of them, if not all of them, it's just part of this. That's the sort of sewer you got, and you pay your sewer levy, same as everybody else, and you get a safe, reliable system managed by the service provider.
I know if I look at the Tamworth Council, they just mentioned that it's covered in the rate, in the sewerage charges,
Yes.
but I'm not sure what those sewerage charges are. So
Yeah.
if you find any information,
Well, from what I
that'd be interesting anyway.
From what I can gather about the ones I have seen some stuff, there's two municipalities, I have trouble with that word, but in Melbourne, and they have LPSS because they've got no choice. The topography, they've got to put them in,
Yeah.
and those people get fully serviced. They've got a 24 hotline. The people turn up, they'll fix it. They don't even know what's going on most of the time. They've got, under the Act, as we have here, they've got access to fix the sewer. Where we lived in Townsville, there was a manhole in our yard. They just came in and mucked around, pumped that out. We didn't, they didn't do it. Why would you stop them? If my thing is overflowing rubbish, I'm not going to stop any. No, don't touch it. That's my shit. It's not going to happen. Yeah. So, but I, as far as I'm concerned, it's just part of the deal.
Yep.
Yeah.
No.
And I don't think that that's unreasonable, but it would depend. I mean, there have been sort of allegations made that we're demanding a gravity system. I think common sense would suggest that might be something that needs to be seriously considered down the track. But if we've got this system, we can't look after it. It's not reasonable to expect us to look after it. You guys own it. You look after it, and we'd be happy enough.
Okay.
Chris Trevor told me once he wouldn't want it on his place. When I asked him, would you have it at your place? He said, no.
Question.
And I'm thinking, well, why are you saying that we should if you won't have it?
Question for me is, I know you mentioned easements,
Yes.
and that's where Councillor Churchill's sort of motion lapsed that last time because we didn't have easements. You're saying that a bit like power easement, the ergon can come in and check your meter, and council staff can check your water meter, but generally it's on the footpath.
Yeah.
Some of the access, do you think, I know that there has been opposition before, if the only option was for if council was of the opinion to take this over, and I'm not suggesting anything like that today, I'm just asking a question.
Yeah.
Would an easement be the end of the world? Like, if an easement was required for it to be legitimate, or is it just not something you would consider at all?
I don't think you need an easement.
I know, no, but I
And
know that.
if you wanted
yeah.
to come onto my block and look after my toilet system, unless I had a cash crop growing in the backyard I didn't want you to know about, I'd be saying, yeah, sure.
I
You
know,
know,
but
yeah.
we gotta, I'm
Yeah.
just saying,
Yeah.
we've got to act within the law.
Yes.
And if our staff are perceived to be trespassing,
Yeah.
for whatever reason, because there's not a legal agreement to enter the property
Yeah.
for that. I don't know the answer to that.
Well, under
Yeah,
the
thank you.
Water Supply Safety and Reliability Act, as I read it, easements aren't required.
Yeah, that's quite-
Sorry to interrupt, the terminology that I was making reference to from the GHD report was ease of access.
Yeah.
Easement, be it easement, or be it by legal agreement, ease of access for council. But we haven't gone down that path. and
All I'm asking is if it was an option, if it came back that said the only option that council has, and I heard ease of access, and I heard absolutely, if it was my house, and I would let you in as well. Come in, but some people have dogs and some people have other things. I just need to know the legal pathway that's required, and if our legal advice comes back and if it's not disputed that you need an easement in order to access them, is it something that could be considered? You don't have to agree to it today, just something that would be considered.
Well, Mr Mayor, that was one of the reasons that one of those options that were put by GH&D Council basically put a $500,000 cost in there for the surveying and registration of the easements, and that blew that option right out of the water. And I think they mentioned at that time that the same thing could be handled with just a memorandum of understanding between the council and the particular owner. I don't see any real need for an easement at all.
Bill's background, by the way, is property development, so he knows these stuff there.
And land surveying, and that's where I started right here. I sat in these chambers here 50 years ago, exactly.
Yeah. The thing
Yeah,
with
but
an easement, I
see, the
guess,
thing- yeah, well, I
this
mean-
does stop residents building on top of it and things like that. So
Yeah.
if there's a registered easement there, you can't necessarily build a shed on it. And if you do, well, then you built a shed knowingly that.
See, you
Not
don't
that
need, you don't need that for this, Matt,
yeah,
because
yeah.
it's a 32 millimetre, I think it is, or 40 millimetre.
42 millimetre.
42 millimetre polythene pipe, black poly pipe.
Yeah.
And it snakes around up through my garden, you know, it was, yeah, so it's not like you're digging a hole to put a clay pipe or a proper, you know.
And the biggest
pipe in.
issue seems to be at the tank itself.
Yeah,
Well,
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 they just dig a hole somewhere in the yard and stick it in the ground. Yeah, it's plastic pipe. Yeah, I think the easement thing was a big red herring, to tell
Okay.
you the truth. And
Yeah.
I don't
No,
think
it's-
any of these four people here
No,
would
that-
be putting their hand and say, no, you can't do it in my place. I'd be, yeah, I don't think that will be a problem at all, I'm sure.
no, thank you.
Well, you just described that way your
Okay.
pipe flows through.
Yeah.
Yes.
Easement go through your
Yeah, thanks.
Well, they won't
Sorry about
need
that.
it.
We can't really
Yeah, that's right.
entertain. Sorry about that.
Yeah,
I'm happy to hear, but sorry, we've got to
Yeah.
keep it to the delegation.
yeah, they're not needed, Nat. Basically, the bottom line is
Yeah.
if this LPSS is maintained and kept for, you know, it's not going to be forever because they're going to stop making them.
Yeah.
But for as long as they keep making them and they're kept, there's absolutely no need for an easement.
Okay.
Right? No need at all, it's immaterial. But if it came to pass that there had to be a gravity system put in, right, that's not impossible, but it would be a different scenario, but I don't think anybody's going to, I've seen the original plan, and I can't see any, even with existing houses that have been put there since, I don't think there's any real serious impediment to doing that according to that original plan. It was just so simple,
Okay.
especially in our neighbourhood, our general part of Elliott Street, Gaydon Street, Barton Street, yeah. Yeah, so I don't think you need to be too worried about that, mate.
Okay. Well, that was just the one thing
Yeah.
that keeps coming up
Fair
in my
enough,
mind.
yeah.
No worries. Councillors, any other questions for our deputation? No? Thank you. Councillor
I just
Muscat,
wanted
yes?
to say thank you and to those ones in the gallery as well.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thanks for coming. Sorry, we
Yeah,
have
thanks
to
for having us.
we'll wrap it up. No, sorry.
Question, Mayor
Yeah.
Matt, what are we going to do? We've got I'm prepared to move the officer's recommendation, but we've been provided with so much information here today, probably even more than we had. What are we going to do? Where to from here? Is it we receive the deputation
That's what the recommendation is? Yeah.
That's the officer's recommendation.
Well, the current recommendation is that the report be received, we don't have to do anything. So the question is, do you want to make an amendment to the officer's recommendation so we have to do something?
Could I?
Entirely up to you.
Well, I agree with you, Councillor Trevor.
Well, we
Could
put
I-
that
could-
up in our slideshow there before, that we had some expectations, so that could be adopted.
But if we don't have a
It's a starting
clue, we
point.
don't have a clue, we could go for a review. But
Well-
the reality of it is that we can receive the deputation, and I would imagine from an operational perspective, we already have in good governance a decision that's been made, so something needs to be done. Do we send it back for review with all this information?
We've already done that,
Already asked our
councillor.
officers.
We've
Our
already
officers
done
are
that.
already doing that.
I'm
See,
asking the
my-
question.
Yeah, from,
Sorry, I can't take a point of order from the gallery, mate. Sorry, I can't take a point of order from the gallery.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that.
well, what I'd say, and I think I'm on the same wavelength as Adam, is that Chris's, what the spirit of what he was just saying is what we would be very pleased to see. That, as we said there before, that you guys notify us that you're going to start looking after them, and in the meantime, sort it out. Because there's a lot of breakdowns happening that we don't know about. People have given up because they ring the council, they say, fix it yourself.
Yeah.
Why would they report it to us? Most people, when they got the letter the other day from Lisa, some of them come up the hill and said to people like Jan, oh, it looks like the council's won the court case, eh? It's all over. And Jan was able to say, no, it's still ticking away, and we're still hopeful. So there's a lot of resignation of their fate type of feeling out there, which is very sad. And so I think, accept the delegation, sure, but in that same breath, yep, we'll commit to doing something as soon as possible.
To be fair, we already have started that process. Councillors have already agreed to have our officers review it, and they're currently doing a review now, which is why I was saying earlier, this deputation could happen in a few weeks, but I know that you guys were in town today, that's why I made it happen today.
Yeah.
So it's sort of in the middle of the process. We've already started a review.
Yep. And you've got some more information now, probably.
And that's right, and this information is given to our officers and councillors. So, I mean, an amendment can be made to the recommendation that something other than it be received, but in terms of a review, it's already underway. So, Councillor Trevor.
Well, I'd like to formalise it today, Mayor, in the sense that our previous resolution stands, and although we may have agreed informally to review, we haven't formally agreed to review, and I think from a governance point of view, subject to our governance officer's advice, I would be inclined to suggest that we amend the resolution today in such a way that the officers review the matter and report back to councillors for further consideration.
Thank you. Rachel, can we put that up on the screen, please? I've got Councillor Goodluck and then Councillor Muscat, and then maybe Councillor Chisholm.
There's a motion to receive the deputation, so I'm prepared to accept the amendment. Councillor Trevor's prepared to second it.
I'm happy to second it.
Okay, yep. And Councillor Goodluck, did you have questions too? Or I go to the Councillor, no, Councillor Muscat.
I just wanted to say, I think what Councillor Trevor just said, it will make this more meaningful, and I would also like to add a date or some sort of by certain date, at least that we provide some sort of response, even if it's just an update. I just want to make sure that we are accountable to give you some sort of, even, I'm not saying the result of the review, but if we're still doing the review, an update as to how we going and what is expected and when we're going to finish it.
Very good.
What sort of timeline did you have in mind? Because I've got to go back to the mover in a second.
I'm happy to take some advice from the CEO in there too.
Lisa?
Difficult to give you a definitive timeframe given some of the information this morning. This is the first time it's been seen, so I'm not sure of the amount of time required to, if you wanted to give us a guardrail around when you'd like to receive a report based on where we're at a point in time. I'm happy to receive
Um,
that advice.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily asking when you will finish it, also, but maybe when is the next time you can give the group an update?
By the group, do you mean the deputationists?
Yes.
At any time that council directs? It's a-
It's the 2nd of May. If we look at about maybe 6 weeks from there for the first update, would that be?
Yep.
6 weeks from now, I'm
Middle
not
of
sure,
June.
just
Middle of June, I think you're saying, something like that.
I accept your
Yeah.
amendment to my amendment, which has been seconded. And also, councillor Churchill, my only concern is we have a budget coming up, and that will involve an enormous amount of work, as it does every year, to formulate and deliver a budget within the next couple of months. So we have some limitations in relation to work other than formulating and delivering the budget. I'd be more inclined to extend that period with your indulgence for a period of upwards of 3 months. I think any shorter than that, we're probably going to have to bring it back to amend the resolution, because we are under time constraints in relation to, as I say, formulating and delivering a budget.
Would you be prepared to consider, Chris, the possibility, in the meantime, these people who are desperately, see, Barbara's neighbours, theirs break down during the Easter break or the school holidays, which is not a good time to have to leave your house. And so they pumped their stuff into her tank so that her tank could pump it to the main. That's happened twice to her now. So in those sorts of emergent situations, could the response from council be a lot more generous than it is now? So if someone like Barbara's neighbours rang the council and said, look, our pump's failed and we really need some help, instead of just being told, well, go to your plumber. You know, I think the spirit of what we've told you today would suggest that council might be generous enough to consider that even at this point.
To the deputation. So we're just amending the resolution here, that the progress be provided to Derek and Bill, or the deputation.
Well, the deputation from the 1770 Sewer Action Group be received. And this information be submitted for
Okay,
current review.
that's what it says. You can see the screen, yeah?
Yeah, I'm seeing that there. Deputation received.
From 17 Beirut.
I'm happy with that. Provided you're happy with it, councillor Churchill, because you.
There was another question on maintenance too.
Would you like to know?
There was,
And of course, councillor Muscat is happy too.
You happy with that too? So, hang on, I'll go back to the motion. Now I have councillor Churchill has moved the original motion, which has been amended by councillor Trevor, who is seconding it. Councillor Muscat has provided an alternative, point 3, and you're both happy to accept that?
I'm happy with the date.
Okay,
there was another question by the delegation regarding maintenance. We
Yep.
have to yes or no or whatever to.
okay, Lisa, sorry.
Mr Mayor, I believe we'd be acting outside of council's current resolution if we were to amend the approach to the maintenance of the system. So unless council wanted to resolve in that regard, officers would be bound to carry out the existing process.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm just saying the question was asked.
So that's why I asked, would you be prepared in the interim to consider the plight of some of these people, like I explained just about Barbara's neighbour,
Yeah,
and please step in and help these people.
we certainly have, that's why we're here to hear the deputation today. We can't really make a resolution outside that without hearing from our officers. We can't have one side of, I hear what you're saying, and we've heard well and truly loud and clear this morning what's been going on, and but for us to make any other decision outside of previously resolved resolution, other than to have more information, and we've given a date, I just don't think is good governance on behalf of council. We've heard a deputation. We now need to hear from our officers, and they need to provide, I believe, councillors can move and amend resolutions. I will just chair them between them, but I think we've got a good resolution there. That's far better than probably any other deputation has ever received. Normally, it's just we receive a deputation, and that's what we should do as a council, and then listen and think about the information you receive and make good decisions. And
Well,
hopefully,
yeah,
we can make a good decision on
Thank you for that, and we now leave this room knowing that we've been able to clearly demonstrate that when you take advice, it can come from more than one quarter.
Yeah.
And that some advice can be more, have greater integrity than other
Yeah.
advice.
And we've definitely heard loud and clear tonight, today.
In terms of the review, Mr Mayor,
Yep.
I think that's fine, that you've got your file on with all the issues. Now, we've supplied extra information. But I think it would be probably better if maybe a consultant, an outside consultant, investigate it and come down or some of your own staff perhaps. We haven't seen any of your technical staff to talk to. I mean, I think Derek and I probably know more about this whole system than anybody that the council employs in the technical area.
We can certainly, some councils consider whether we use our outside consultant. That would certainly blow out the 4th of July date. That's a problem. So, but something to think about for councillors to consider. And
Clarifying that the 4th of July is not that we have to have it finished.
Yeah.
It's just aiming to give you an update, so we make sure that we keep you updated and we keep in contact.
yeah, absolutely. And I'm just saying,
yeah.
even to engage a consultant would
Yeah.
take till the 4th of July to get one. So
Definitely, and I think that will
sometimes they're
be...
worth getting, sometimes they're not.
Yeah.
Can I make it one, and then I'll shut up?
No worries.
Promise you,
Yeah.
promise you.
I've got to put the motion then, yeah.
Yeah, this is a letter that came along with the, with regard to the Supreme Court application. And the fellow, I think it's John Woods from King & Co., was saying, and I quote, somewhere here, contrary to the on-premises pumping apparatus does not constitute a sewage system. So that's from the lawyer. And then I go over a few pages to the sewer engineer affidavit, Fernando. I refer to the schematic compromising which depicts a basic on-site sewage system. I consider the schematic useful in that it depicts a typical on-site sewage system. So the engineer's saying that it is, and the lawyer's saying that it's not. I understand that went to the Supreme Court. Just leave that with you.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Bill. Councillors, no further comments or questions. We have a mover from Councillor Churchill, second Councillor Trevor, amended, as I said, and agreed. I'm going to put that motion now. All in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Bill. Thank you
very much.
Thank you, Derek.
Thank
and
you, Mr. Mayor.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone else. All right, councillors, we have a few more officer recommendations to get through. So we'll move to the next officer's report. And it's G4.1, the 2023 World Hydrogen Summit in Rotterdam. And I hand over to the General Manager of Strategy and Transformation, Carly Quinn. When
So
she's
what do
free.
you want?
Thank you, Carly. Over to you.
Morning, councillors. So this report seeks councillors' support to accept an invitation from the Queensland Government. The Department of Energy and Public Works has invited a council representative to join us at the World Hydrogen 2023 Summit and Exhibition, which is on in May next week here. In Rotterdam in the Netherlands, The World Hydrogen Summit and Exhibition is one of the largest events dedicated to global hydrogen development, and this is a really good opportunity for not only council to be represented, but Central Queensland to be represented, and for the Central Queensland Technology Hub to be represented as well. All the information is provided in the report. The registration is complimentary, which is approximately $4,000, and all of the other travel and accommodation costs would come in just under around $7,500, which is included in the strategy and transformation budget, so there is a budget allocation for this. We've got Gary here, our economic development specialist, who we're proposing to attend because the mayor is unavailable to attend. And Gary's been working with Austrade on the delegation itself and on all the various opportunities that will be presented over there, so I'm able to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Carly, and thank you, Gary, for volunteering, might be the word. I said, can you please attend this? It's obviously a decision for council being international. My personal opinion is if I was available, I would love to go. Unfortunately, I'm not. I think we need to be represented in this. The fact that we're going with the state delegation and the registration's being paid for is a bonus for us. So my position is that we should definitely send Gary along, and I don't know too many people who know more about the hydrogen industry and ecosystem in Gladstone than he does. Councillor Hanson.
I think it is a must that we attend, and I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Hanson. Seconded, Councillor Churchill.
Go hydro.
Oh, hang on me, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, yeah, still got a quorum. Down 2 councillors, and Councillor Muscat, I think, has just gone to the bathroom. But I have a quorum, so move Councillor Hanson, seconded Councillor Churchill. Any further questions? I put the motion. All in favour? Motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Gary. The next item on the agenda, I think Councillor Muscat would like to be here for, so we might just hold out for a little bit of a second. She's back. Excellent. Is 4.2 is the EOI 98-23 e-scooter trial. I hand over to, well, Kylie's away, so I hand over to the General Manager of Finance, Governance and Risk, Mark Holmes. And I believe Kim is joining you as well.
Yep.
Christy as well. Thank you.
Morning, Mayor and Councillors. You will recall that on the 1st of November last year, you basically resolved to go out to the market to seek expression of interest for essentially what may be some e-scooter mobility options in Agnes Water and also in Boyne Island Town of Sands. So we've gone out to the market, and we have received a response from Bird Rides Australia for that. We're now looking at going to the next stage of that process, which would be inviting a tender from that company. But I've got Christy and Kim here that could take any questions that you wish to go further.
Thank you. Councillors, questions, please. Councillor Churchill.
Yeah, thanks for that, and thanks for the report. Just a couple of quick questions. First and foremost is, in your recommendation, you're referring to a closed tender process. Can you just explain that particular point? What do you mean by closed? Is it just the one who submitted the EOI? Am I speculating on that, or is it already a done deal, or no?
Thank you, Councillor. It is just a tender with, it would be with Bird Rides Australia. They would be the only participant in the tender process.
Okay, thank you for that. I thought that might be
Yeah,
the
so
case.
part of going out of the expression of interest process means that we essentially, that's the first part of the funnel. We would then resolve, if we had multiple essentially responses, we could then resolve who we then want to go into a closed tender process. As we've only received the one, that's essentially the proposal.
Okay, then, and this particular recommendation is just now down to Agnes Water 1770, rightfully, I suppose, because we had talked about the Gladstone Marine, and we talked about Tannum, I think, which was part of it as well. But in dot point 3, you've actually said you're going to Agnes Water 1770 because it's got an established footpath network. Are you indicating that the other areas don't? Is there missing links? Is the other areas aren't suitable because they don't have an established footpath network?
No, the other areas would be suitable. We're proposing Agnes Water as the place to start a trial as a appropriate tourism destination and a good size to start a trial in.
Okay, so that's Agnes Water and 1770 collectively. Okay, not a designated area, it's both, all area.
Yes,
Okay.
that's right. We could designate particular areas that we don't want the e-scooters to be able to access through their zoning and geofencing.
Sure. I mean, I still have a concern myself. I'm sure others do as well, but not to say that I don't support the idea of a trial. My other question was that we have received response and information back from the Senior Sergeant Sean English, which was from the Queensland Police Service, raising some matters as such. So, I mean, everything works well when everybody abides by the road safety rules. Life works really well if everybody abides by the rules. So my question is, has it been through the QPS TIAC engineering process that relates to pathways? Because you've mentioned pathways explicitly, signage, on-ramps, off-ramps, and all the other aspects that may go towards minimising, reducing or eliminating any potential litigation to local government and our ratepayers.
It hasn't been through those groups yet. Part of the process with Bird would be to work through the requirements and the licences that they need, but also to work with them on the geofencing requirements if there were areas that we didn't want the scooters to be able to access, or if there were areas that we need them to slow down. We can work with them on all of those.
And my last question, whether it's Bird, now that it's a closed tender, the education factor. There are already some young ones out there that are using these things, but the education, whose role and whose responsibility is that? It doesn't make any reference to it. The education and the awareness for users. Is that the successful tender, or is it council, or is it the community, DCTC, or everybody?
I think it would be a combination of all. So largely responsibility is with the tenderer. However, council and groups like DCTC, GAPDL could do some education campaigns.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Muscat. And then Councillor Cameron.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask you, I know the tender is in the confidential part of the documents, but I understand that the response was only for Tannum and Agnes, correct? So no Gladstone Marina? Or?
When we put the expression of interest out, we only did it for Tannum Sands and Agnes 1770.
Okay, great.
Yes,
Great.
yeah.
Okay.
We did have some initial conversations about Gladstone.
Yep.
But when we went to expression of interest, we only identified
That's
those
okay,
two
yeah, so we
locations.
did speak about just the marina area, and but I also know that that's Portland, so I guess, I think it's, yeah, I'm more than happy to do this. I'm just feel it's a bit of a shame that we're not going to do it in Tannum, that's all, and...
Well, that's totally up to you.
Yeah,
Oh, the
so
boardroom,
because
It's
It's
item number 2.
it's
but
a suggested option.
I'm not supporting that anyway, but yeah.
well, yeah, that's right. I understand that because I'm kind of a little concerned about the way in which we utilize some of the social media as a representation of community sentiment. We didn't really do a dedicated or deliberate community sentiment review study or anything of the sort. Social media isn't community sentiment. It, as you know, by any sort of methodology that is reliable. So thank you for putting that there, since we didn't have anything. But to me, it's probably, I will just like to stay away from those sort of things, because that isn't, if someone makes submissions or sends in even like some sort of formal communication to us or to our email addresses, but just ranting on social media isn't really, it doesn't provide me with what people and community feel, because there's a lot of people that don't comment, for starters, and other people that comment too much. So, yeah, I'm happy to do the trial. I'll just like to see what other people think about Tannum.
I've got Councillor Cameron and Councillor Goodluck.
Yes, thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I was looking at the social media post too, which is a bit interesting. When you look at the figures on reactions, you've got a bit over 70% positive, but when you come to comments, there's only 39% positive. So when you add that two together and take the median, it's only 55% that are actually positively look at this thing. Is that enough to warrant the trial? And the other thing that is a concern too is the legal liability of scooters on pathways, etc. Do we know what that is? Does the company undertake all responsibility for public liability?
Sorry to Kim for that.
My understanding is that yes, they do. They're responsible.
Yeah, taking the responsibility is one thing, but when it comes to a legal case, there's another when you want to argue it. We allowed these things on our pathways and on our roads, and because we did that, there's been an accident, so we're culpable, or we've contributed to. Is there, you know, to me, there's a bit of a grey area there. And look, I think if you're going to have a trial anywhere, I think Agnes 1770 would be the ideal place because it's basically tourist oriented. They do have dedicated pathways, etc., and parking and everything is quite an issue there. So this could relieve all that. I could see that. But as far as these things in Boyne, Tannum, and in particular Gladstone, I wouldn't be supportive.
Yeah, fair. They've been operating obviously in places like Brisbane and other places for a long time, so I'd be interested to know if there is has there been a case brought against the council if there's because there's been plenty of accidents. Yeah. So it'd be interesting to know from Brisbane City Council or other South East Queensland councils that have them. Bundy's only recently got them, so they may not be aware. Councillor Goodluck.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. With respect to liability, that we have bicycles, scooters, skateboards, we even have e-scooters. People own their own personal e-scooters in our region, no doubt in Agnes Water, in Tannum Sands. Kids and adults alike will ride on the footpaths with their bicycles and skateboards and scooters. So it's no, from a liability perspective, I'm not sure that there's any difference with an e-scooter and a company like this, which actually has more mechanisms in place to manage risk. With this, you have to sign, you know, your declaration every time you jump on it. As far as education goes, there is a aspect of education when you scan the scooter because you have to read the stuff and agree to it all before you get on the thing and take off. So there's those. I'm not really concerned about that personally. I do think that this is a trial as well. This is not, you know, it may work, it may not work. I think they're more beneficial for tourists. They're not the cheapest option for day-to-day travel because they do cost money per minute or per kilometre, however it works. So if you're probably not going to use one every day to scoot to and from work or whatever, because you'd probably be cheaper in the long run to buy your own scooter and just scoot to work. But for tourists who are only in the area for a brief amount of time or whatever the case may be, it might be quite an affordable option to scoot from 1770 down to Agnes or wherever it might be. And then we also have the ability to manage where they go, how fast they go. So I think this will be a good opportunity for us in the Agnes 1770 to see how it works, to see what the community sentiment is. I think Bundaberg did a 12-month trial and then went and got the community sentiment. It's all right to talk about community sentiment from a Facebook post and asking people what do they think. There's probably people that have never used one in our region, and likewise there's plenty of people that have. I was riding on them in Brisbane on the weekend, had a great time. So I think it's a trial. We can see how it goes. If it doesn't work, we can always pull the trial. So I'm happy to support the officer's recommendation. And alternatively, if it works really well, then perhaps it is something that we look at for Tannum Sands, for other areas, Calliope, Gladstone, whatever the case may be. But I think it's a good opportunity just to see how it goes down in Agnes Water in 1770.
Thank you. Councillor Muscat?
Thank you. Just checking, this is a trial for 2 years? Or, well, if this obviously happens, we haven't formalised. So if the idea will be to stop it or expand it after 2 years, or there will be anything maybe after 12 months we can look at Tannum, or?
Yeah, so we can negotiate the trial period depending on council's advice today. We could look at a 12-month and then introducing an additional area. After the 2 years, I believe we would go back out to market then.
I see, okay.
Yes, if we decided to implement them permanently.
So if this works okay, does it have to come back here to say in the 12 months to include Tannum?
Yeah.
We would have to bring the closed tender result back to you for resolution, so when we go.
Does that need to be added to here, because it doesn't really say anything about Tannum, it just says...
Yeah, if you want to include that, you can, but if you're going to expand, if the trial works, why just Tannum? What's wrong? We have
yeah.
cruise ships coming into the city. I'm sure they'd like to use scooters to go up the main street potentially. I don't know.
We can always bring it back
So-
and request it in the meantime anyway, before.
But if you're after community sentiment, and the argument is Agnes Water is very much tourist focused, and that's absolutely probably that drives the economy in Agnes 1770. Well, then how do you get, if it's a different in Boyne Tannum, how we can compare community sentiment? You're not going to find out what the sentiment in Tannum is unless you have a trial there. So I know there's differing opinions around the room, but that's what I love about this room. But, you know, I'm not sure that most people I'm speaking to saying no thanks, but then the younger ones who rode them on the weekend think they're great. So, yeah, I tried to hire one in Bundaberg on the weekend and I couldn't even get it to go. And in fact, when I lifted it up off the ground, it said calling the authorities, so I put it down and walked away. So I know that's, you know, other towns are doing it. Doesn't mean that we have to do it because they are, but it certainly is a mode of transport that people are using. And I'm not sure that by doing a trial in Agnes, and only Agnes, I'll support the officer's recommendation at least, so that we'd have a go at these. But I'm not sure why we wouldn't do Tannum as well. That's just my thoughts. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sort of similar to that. And well, I do live in Tannum, but I also have children, and I know my kids, they're teens, and they will enjoy, not as tourists, but as just young, responsible people that will like to have something like that there.
Not sure.
There's a few unresponsible people everywhere, and there's a few unresponsible drivers, there's a few unresponsible cycle people, but most people are responsible.
Councillor Henson and then Councillor Churchill.
I've never ridden one of these, Mr Mayor, and probably never will. I might be missing something there, as the young ones say, but that's okay. We talked about community sentiment in Agnes Water being positive through a Facebook. I'm not sure what permanent residents would say. I'm not sure we've got their opinion, but a trial would probably get their opinions from them. So that's very important, the permanent residents, that we look after them. I did attend that 1770 Coastal Adaptation Resilience session the other night, and one of the biggest things regarding the headland is the overcrowding during, of course, we all know that. Something like this may assist in that regard, I don't know, but I'm probably willing to just accept the officer's recommendation, option 1 only, just to do the trial in that area, and get the recommendations of the permanent residents from that.
Might get outvoted, Councillor Muscat here. Okay, Councillor Churchill.
Yeah, no, look, thanks for that. And I have ridden one, and I've ridden one a few times. My major concern was more falling off than getting on, as such. But I think Councillor Goodluck has summed it up with his pearls of wisdom there, I suppose, from a young person's perspective and the tourism destination. But the issue that still jumps out at me, and I base this on my previous experience as a forensic fatal investigator, is that it may not necessarily just be the behaviour of the person on the e-scooter. It's other variables. And having been in the coroner's court on many occasions, it's not always the person that's driving that is the cause of the incident. So there's got to be a greater understanding, not just from the customer who's using the e-scooter, is the awareness, the engineering, the lighting, the signage, and the list goes on. And appropriately, we're not going to know those things until we do the trial. We could go round and round trying to find out all the various issues about what, but you're going to know that. And that's what we probably need to get in some feedback at some stage, because if we haven't got it right with our missing links in our footpaths, or getting on and getting off, and whatever the case might be, we're not going to know until we find out, and then we will know. And then it's more a matter from local government how we're going to respond to that.
And just perhaps for a level of comfort for councillors, the trial can look however we would like it to look. We can negotiate with the company. It could be 6 months and then look at introducing additional areas wherever council.
Yeah, thank you. Because my point is the community, and we've got visitors that come from other parts that have probably never seen an e-scooter, or hopefully they have, but it's respecting that the e-scooters are there and they have a place if we go ahead with the trial.
Sorry, Councillor
Shouldn't
Hanson?
we actually know now what that trial, you're saying could be anything? Shouldn't we actually know that before we make a decision like this?
Sorry, to be clear, that's probably what we're seeking from council today as well, is
Okay.
how you want that trial to look.
Well,
We're just saying on the resolution, go and do a trial. What's the trial look like? I don't know.
well, I assume a trial would, in 6 months for them, might say, well, it's not worth our bother. We want 12 months or 2 years. And I don't have a problem with the trial being 12 months or maybe even 2 years if that's what the officer's recommendation is. But I do think that that's too long to wait for the city and Tanam and other parts of the area, because what I see Calliope open discussion was in there as well, although it appeared they didn't want them, but who would know what open discussion says every other day of the week. So I think the officer's recommendation needs some kind of amendment to put timeframes in there, but I would like to see that if it's successful in Agnes, and then we can consider the other parts. If we're not going to get there, Councillor Muscat, I think we're going to lose. I can listen. One thing I've learned to do in this job is count, and it doesn't look like there's a lot of support for us at the moment.
But I think some timeframes,
yeah.
it would be good.
Yeah, Councillor Trevor.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm diametrically opposed to this idea, and because for me it's a matter of safety. This corporation prides itself on safety, always has, always will, always does, and I'm not satisfied that appropriate insurance arrangements are in place to protect innocent people who are injured, maimed or killed by the use of e-scooters on our footpaths without proper investigation as to the issues relating to matters which Councillor Churchill has alerted to. I'm not confident from the observations and report that I have in front of me that the e-scooter commercial business, and that's what we're talking about here, a commercial enterprise, not a private individual, is armed with insurance to properly compensate an aggrieved person in the event of serious injury or death. It is common knowledge that these e-scooters present what some consider to be an unacceptable risk to pedestrians. People have been killed in Brisbane by them. People have been seriously injured and maimed by them in Brisbane and in other areas. I don't think we have enough information in front of us to form a view that our area is practical for these. But the most important consideration for me, having spent over 35 years of putting people's lives back together again after serious accidents, is that I don't know that in the event of a 16-year-old unemployed youth who has no assets will be covered by insurance by this private enterprise in the event of someone being struck by that individual who has no opportunity and no ability to pay proper compensation for the aggrieved. I'm not willing to, as I say, support any consideration in relation to a trial where or unless I am satisfied that appropriate insurance is in place to protect the citizens of these the citizens of this community who go about their ordinary day-to-day lives safe in the knowledge that this council will, to the best of our ability, protect them. And I'm afraid this new fad doesn't encourage me to support a new industry where there is a risk of injury or death and no compensation payable.
Thank you, Councillor Trevor. That is a bit of a worry. Do they, if they've got the appropriate insurances, surely they would have no issue indemnifying council?
And so as part of the closed tender process, there's a management plan that needs to be provided. And I think that's the sort of information we'd be seeking as part of that, is to what is the level and extent of insurance coverage is like to get that level of comfort or otherwise.
We're being asked to make a decision today.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Without
this is
that
only to go to progress to so just to clarify, all we're going through is the next stage. So we're going from expression of interest to basically progressing to a closed tender. The final, essentially, your point of no return to start the trial would be on essentially award of the closed tender.
And the closed tender will come back here? Oh,
Yeah.
that's fine. We can look at indemnity at that point in time, and we can look at extensions into other areas as well, like the city and Tanam and Calliope and other
make
areas.
sure that those items are covered.
So do we need to, we don't need to amend the recommendation, or do we do?
Perhaps,
Thank you.
Mayor, if you wanted the trial to extend beyond Agnes Water and 1770, then that would warrant an amendment, but otherwise it's fine.
Well, I'd get a seconder and then we'd lose the vote. Hey, I'm happy to have a go, Councillor Muscat, if you like. I'll second it if you move it. But otherwise, we could include the...
It's very valid, the point that you're making, that having the trial in Agnes, I think it's well, but that isn't the same as Tanam, and it is also not the same as Gladstone. So if we're actually trialling, they're two different areas. So why not trial? They're more than an hour away from each other. So whatever we're going to trial in Agnes doesn't mean it's going to work in Tanam. So we can just do both trials at the same time and then see what happens then. And it might work in Agnes, but it might not work in Tanam. So, or vice versa. It could be something along those lines. So I don't see why, if we're trialling, why we can't trial in both areas.
Disagree.
Councillor Goodluck.
I understand the concerns around liability and indemnity. I was down at Millennium Esplanade in Tanam Sands with my children and all their cousins and all their friends a couple of weekends ago for a barbecue. There was hundreds of kids with scooters, push bikes, skateboards, e-scooters, e-bikes, all up and down the footpath all day, the whole day that we were there. This is already happening, and it's so it's we can't control the indemnity and liability for all of those people that are already doing that, and that's the same in many other locations across the region. I'm happy to go extend the trial to Tannum. I'm happy to move that. If not, we can just stick with the Agnes Water trial. I think that this is a trial. We can work out all the technicalities through the tender process, and we'll see how our community responds and likes this. It may even come back that they're not well utilised and the company turns around and tells us, actually, you know what, it's not worth our time being in Tannum Sands or Agnes Water, so we're pulling out. There's also a number of other large e-scooter companies that didn't tender, and I suspect that's because we've limited the scope too much. And I think that's something we should be conscious of in future tenders, because I would imagine that the larger companies that you see in the likes of Brisbane and other major city areas have probably got bigger infrastructure and resources to be able to better manage some of the challenges around servicing the scooters, making sure they're not left on the sides of the roads, those sorts of things. So we might, in future, if we were to expand the areas that we're willing to do this on, we might actually get a better product through a future tender process as well. So that's something that I think we should be conscious of. So if is someone going to move a motion, or am I going to move a motion? I'm happy to move that. Mr. Mayor, how did you count? Which way was it going?
There's option 2.
Option 2. I'm happy to move option 2. See how we go.
Still going to lose. That's okay. Councillor Muscat.
Thank you. I just wanted to also note that I do, yes, live in Tannum, but my children go to school in Gladstone, and they have been going to school in Gladstone, Gladstone West, and now Gladstone State High School. And my children walk up and down from school to the sporting activities, etc., and I will never hesitate to, if there was this option for them to, go from one place to the other, I will be more than grateful and thankful. So it is, I'm not suggesting that we move it to Gladstone right now, but there's also the potential of supporting some of that infrastructure when it comes to footpaths and, understanding where it is that we're not having them, how we can connect footpaths, and, as Councillor Churchill always tells us how important those footpaths are, and I 100% agree, because my children walk on them, and the children of, hundreds of people. So I'm happy to second option 2.
So you're seconding the motion,
Yes.
Councillor?
Thank you.
I just wanted to clarify about my where I live and where my interests are too.
Yes. Everyone's interest is everywhere in the whole 10,000 plus square kilometres. Other questions, comments, councillors? I do have a mover and a seconder in the motion on the screen, which is option 2, which is Agnes trial in Agnes Water and 1770 and Tannum Sands. This will be an interesting vote. I'm going to put the motion. All in favour? And those against? The motion is lost.
Happy to move the officer's recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Goodluck. Seconded, Councillor Muscat, that the officer's recommendation be accepted, which is that the trial for e-scooters be established in Agnes Water and 1770 only. I'll put that motion. All in favour? Those against? Sorry. Oh, the motion is carried. Thank you. And I think, councillors, well, we do have a few items left.
Sorry, Mayor, could I
call the division?
Call a division, thank you.
Yeah. Division called. Those in favour, please. The minutes note that Councillor Muscat, Councillor Hanson, Councillor Churchill, Councillor Goodluck and myself voted in favour, and those against, Councillor Trevor and Councillor Cameron against. And I know we don't have many items left, councillors, but it's a bit after 11. I'm going to break for morning tea and invite the gallery to join us. Thank you.
Sign up to Council's disaster and weather event warning system. Receive alerts about emergency news, severe weather events and other public safety alerts via SMS or email. Registering to the disaster messaging system is free. To register, visit Gladstone Regional Council's Region Watch website and click on the Register for Warnings button. Get ready, Gladstone. Take the steps to protect what's most important to you. Let's be better prepared and protected for emergencies and disasters.
Gladstone Regional Council are committed to fostering a proud, involved and engaged community. The Gladstone Regional Council Community Investment Program provides financial support to local community initiatives, projects and events which promote community connections, regional enhancements, community celebrations and community education. For more information on the Community Investment Program, visit gladstone.qld.gov.au. Gladstone Regional Council. Connect, innovate, diversify.
Illegal dumping and littering is a concern across the Gladstone region, with over 134 offences in the last 18 months. Our region is beautiful, but there are a few bad apples that ruin it for the rest of us, and they need to clean up their act.
Commonly found items at illegal dumping sites across the region include car bodies and batteries, mattresses, tyres, white goods and furniture, and green waste. These items can be disposed of at any of the region's waste transfer stations, some of them even for free.
Illegal dumping and littering pollutes our environment, harms plants and animals, and detracts from the enjoyment of our public spaces. It can lead to stormwater and ocean pollution, with large amounts of plastic, sugar sachets, and cigarette butts caught in stormwater traps and grates.
It's cheaper for everyone to dispose of waste correctly. Illegal dumping and littering cost our ratepayers thousands of dollars each year in waste management and clean-up. It's also costly for our dumper, with penalties of up to $10,000.
We can all work together to keep our region beautiful and dispose of waste responsibly by placing rubbish in the bins, or even holding onto the rubbish until you're near a suitable bin, and using our local waste facilities. Don't be part of the problem of pollution. We want you to be a part of the solution.
From towns to the bush, illegal dumping and littering is everybody's responsibility.
Protect our public spaces and natural environment by doing the right thing for today and tomorrow.
If you see illegal dumping,
Dob in a dumper.
see it, report it, stop it.
Sign up to Council's disaster and weather event warning system. Receive alerts about emergency news, severe weather events and other public safety alerts via SMS or email. Registering to the disaster messaging system is free. To register, visit Gladstone Regional Council's Region Watch website and click on the Register for Warnings button. Get ready, Gladstone. Take the steps to protect what's most important to you. Let's be better prepared and protected for emergencies and disasters.
Gladstone Regional Council are committed to fostering a proud, involved and engaged community. The Gladstone Regional Council Community Investment Program provides financial support to local community initiatives, projects and events which promote community connections, regional enhancements, community celebrations and community education. For more information on the Community Investment Program, visit gladstone.qld.gov.au. Gladstone Regional Council. Connect, innovate, diversify.
Illegal dumping and littering is a concern across the Gladstone region, with over 134 offences in the last 18 months. Our region is beautiful, but there are a few bad apples that ruin it for the rest of us, and they need to clean up their act.
Commonly found items at illegal dumping sites across the region include car bodies and batteries, mattresses, tyres, white goods and furniture, and green waste. These items can be disposed of at any of the region's waste transfer stations, some of them even for free.
Illegal dumping and littering pollutes our environment, harms plants and animals, and detracts from the enjoyment of our public spaces. It can lead to stormwater and ocean pollution, with large amounts of plastic, sugar sachets, and cigarette butts caught in stormwater traps and grates.
It's cheaper for everyone to dispose of waste correctly. Illegal dumping and littering costs our ratepayers thousands of dollars each year in waste management and clean-up. It's also costly for our dumper, with penalties of up to $10,000.
We can all work together to keep our region beautiful and dispose of waste responsibly by placing rubbish in the bins, or even holding onto the rubbish until you're near a suitable bin, and using our local waste facilities. Don't be part of the problem of pollution. We want you to be a part of the solution.
From towns to the bush, illegal dumping and littering is everybody's responsibility. Protect our public spaces and natural environment by doing the right thing for today and tomorrow.
If you see illegal dumping,
Dob in a dumper.
See it,
report it, stop it.
Sign up to Council's disaster and weather event warning system. Receive alerts about emergency news, severe weather events and other public safety alerts via SMS or email. Registering to the disaster messaging system is free. To register, visit Gladstone Regional Council's Region Watch website and click on the Register for Warnings button. Get ready, Gladstone. Take the steps to protect what's most important to you. Let's be better prepared and protected for emergencies and disasters.
Gladstone Regional Council are committed to fostering a proud, involved and engaged community. The Gladstone Regional Council Community Investment Program provides financial support to local community initiatives, projects and events which promote community connections, regional enhancements, community celebrations and community education. For more information on the Community Investment Program, visit gladstone.qld.gov.au. Gladstone Regional Council. Connect, innovate, diversify.
Illegal dumping and littering is a concern across the Gladstone region, with over 134 offences in the last 18 months. Our region is beautiful, but there are a few bad apples that ruin it for the rest of us, and they need to clean up their act.
Commonly found items at illegal dumping sites across the region include car bodies and batteries, mattresses, tyres, white goods and furniture, and green waste. These items can be disposed of at any of the region's waste transfer stations, some of them even for free.
Illegal dumping and littering pollutes our environment, harms plants and animals, and detracts from the enjoyment of our public spaces. It can lead to stormwater and ocean pollution, with large amounts of plastic, sugar sachets, and cigarette butts caught in stormwater traps and grates.
It's cheaper for everyone to dispose of waste correctly. Illegal dumping and littering cost our ratepayers thousands of dollars each year in waste management and clean-up. It's also costly for our dumper, with penalties of up to $10,000.
We can all work together to keep our region beautiful and dispose of waste responsibly by placing rubbish in the bins, or even holding onto the rubbish until you're near a suitable bin, and using our local waste facilities. Don't be part of the problem of pollution.
Well, thank you, councillors, thank you, officers, and welcome back to everyone online. The next item on our agenda is G4.3, which is the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee meeting minutes for the 15th of March 2023. And I'll hand back to the General Manager of Finance, Governance and Risk, Mark Holmes. Thank you, Mark.
Morning, Mayor and Councillors. This item is just for your review and consideration, the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee meeting minutes for the 15th of March 2023. The paper includes some of the key reports that were presented to that meeting and discussed at length by the group, and there's a summary with respect to each one of those issues raised. Happy to take questions with respect to it, and if there's any of the councillors that were members of that committee wanted to make any comments as well, more than welcome.
Thank you. Yep, councillors,
You're looking
questions?
at me.
Councillor Muscat, yes.
Well, not more than what's in the report, but if anyone has any questions, please. We have reviewed some of the reports anyway in between the meeting and today, as in information sessions and other forums. But if anyone has any questions, please.
No worries. Councillor Churchill, a question?
Yeah, thanks for that, Mayor Matt. Yeah, I've got one in item 7.1, and I think it's just maybe interpretation or the wordsmithing. In the second paragraph, it says a discussion was held regarding the replacement of ageing infrastructure. Now, I'm assuming here that relates to just the communication technology, but it says replacement of ageing infrastructure, and it was noted that the replacement program is tracking well. That's terrific to read that and know. It's the next part, with no concerns at this stage. So is there no concerns with the tracking well, or is there no concerns with our ageing infrastructure? That's what I was trying to get an understanding of.
Yeah, so
and there's obviously more to this in the discussion.
Yeah, so this is our ICT replacement program, and essentially the conversion of a lot of some of the desktop technologies to laptops and the like to essentially become more up to the standard that we have across the business. So no, that is basically trying to say is that at the moment that transition and that program for this year, that work's on track.
Okay, and that's relating to the upgrade of technology?
Yeah, technology, ICT.
Lovely,
yep.
Thank you. Yep, I was hoping it wasn't all the other infrastructure that we've... Anyway, thank you.
Councillor Hanson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. In the minutes, just got a couple of questions. Page 10 of 24 with the People, Culture and Safety Quarterly Report. There was a paragraph in there, a discussion was held regarding the workforce distribution, and the committee requested future reports regarding getting a full-time equivalent number of people that work for council. Can that be accelerated back to us as councillors? So, because, you know, I need to know the numbers that we're operating underneath here, that's all. That's just a question.
If I may, I share your frustration, Councillor Hanson, and I would also like to know the numbers. This is one of the challenges that we face with having a HR system and a finance system that are not integrated, and the work we need to do to gather that information. But there is dedicated focus on this, and as soon as it's available, we'll be providing that report to you.
Thank you.
And the second question and the last question is, and when I say last, it is last. Page 11 of 24, the project risk, business risk. How are we moving and differentiating that? How's our progress on that? Because I would have thought that that would be something that's very important.
Yep, so this was issued with respect to essentially project risks as opposed to business, and so we spend a lot of time, our system essentially differentiates between essentially corporate risks, operational risks and project risks, and we've found a lot of and our risk management corporate standard depends on the classification of each of those risks, how we report back on those and how we manage those risks. We found some of those project risks were getting elevated in some of those reports, but when we compared them to some of our corporate and operational risks, they probably weren't they were important to those projects, yes, but not to the overall business risk. So there's been, just to make sure, essentially from a reporting perspective, just a bit of a tidy up on that space.
Tidying up the reporting.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Any further questions, councillors? Okay. Is there a recommendation for the officer's recommendation? Mover. Thank you. Councillor Hanson. Second, and Councillor Goodluck. No further questions. I put the motion. All in favour? That's carried. Thank you, Mark. Next item on the agenda is councillor reports. We have no written councillor reports, but I'm happy to go around the table if councillors have anything they'd like to add.
No, nothing out of the ordinary other than perhaps you indicated last night was the candlelight vigil in relation to Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Used to be a day, used to be a week, now a month. Probably should be for the whole year, constant awareness, but it's a remembrance. So tomorrow morning, I'll get the acronym, CCRDFV, are holding their Domestic and Family Violence Remembrance Day at, as they do annually, at Friend Park at Marnie Point. As such, 7:30 for an 8 a.m. start, and if you could appropriately wear something purple, and an opportunity to pay respects and at the same time remember. And we thank them for them and Women's Health and other organisations who take the time to organise these Remembrance Days with utmost respect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Churchill. Any further council reports? No council reports, no urgent business, no notices of motion, and I don't believe we have any confidential items. So I'll declare the meeting closed at 11:40 a.m. Thank you.